welcome back to another episode of Popcorn Politics. Today we're going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Daniel Louis Crumpton joins me as he often does. Daniel, how are you?
Pretty good. Uh, we're gonna we're gonna pretend that this isn't like the 50th take.
Yes, yes. Don't peek behind the curtain. Nope, don't do that.
No, no, no. Yeah. So let me see how it took. Let me see what a more couth way of beginning this show on a Sunday, the Lord's Day, rather than what we did, which will probably only be an Easter egg as an after show audio somewhere on some show. I'm not
We're
gonna say
we're
it's this one.
we're gonna we're gonna put that out to the public.
No, no. Well, nobody's gonna find it because nobody's ever gonna listen to us to the end anyway to find out that it's actually after the credits. That just like Marvel, that there's actually extra audio at the end. So nobody will ever hear it anyway. It'll just be for me and you, like 20, 30, 40 years from now. We're like, hey, Dylan, remember that time we used to hide gags at the end of the show?
Let's be honest here. Most of this is just for you and I.
Yeah, but you know what's funny about it? What's funny about it is in a Uberverse where everything is possible. There is some civilization somewhere on some planet that either will at sometime in the future or already has, due to time space distortions, received everything that we've said and have created an entire religion, a civilization around every jot and tittle of the transcripts that were
That
received by what they consider to be holy men and prophets from our podcast.
Well, I would like to apologize to that civilization in advance. Or in retrospect?
In retrospect, in advance, and in the
I,
present tense.
regardless, I'd like to apologize to that species.
Speaking of which, that reminds me, me and you do actually have to do the apologies episode where we owe a lot of people some apologies.
Yes, yes. I, I regret nothing I've said, but I will apologize to them.
I think that we need to do like Bucky Barnes, ham-fisted segue, and we need to come up with a little composition book with a list of names of people that we need to make amends to.
I don't think that was ham-fisted at all. I think that was quite smooth.
I think it was too. One would almost think it was scripted, but that is impossible because it wasn't.
No, we can't script anything.
No, it'd be
We are not capable of that. But you know who is? The writers of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
all right. Let's get professional. I I
Ah,
I will let out what I have to say first. Um, this one was a real surprise, man. The whole show was a real surprise. Okay.
yeah.
uh, a pleasant surprise that I wasn't really even like waiting for this one, man. Okay,
Hmm.
but I mean I knew I was gonna watch it, but I wasn't waiting for it because I just it's like man, I guess it was a bias because back when Netflix was doing the Marvel like miniseries shows, they were good. Don't get me wrong. I loved the second season of Daredevil. I loved the Punisher. Loved Jessica Jones. I thought that was a
Uh-huh.
great one.
Yeah.
Cage was great.
We don't talk about Iron Fist,
Yeah, we really don't.
which
Uh,
is a shame because I love that character.
the character in the comics is great, but I don't know what happened there. But okay, but so I like those shows. I love those Netflix shows. And I hope that some way they bring them back. And I hear there's rumors, and who knows? I mean, right now Marvel fans are getting everything we want anyway. Like anything we ever wished is happening.
Yes.
So
No,
it's
this is
like,
a good time to be a Marvel Comics fan.
yeah, dude, it's like really it is. So it's like anything that we really want. I mean, I've even heard today that now Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are going to have a new series of their own things, and it's like, yeah, dude,
There
yes,
is
more.
a I don't know about Andrew Garfield, but there is a rumor that Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire are reuniting for Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, dude, oh, great. Anyway, long story short, I liked the Netflix mini Marvel things, but I mean, let's face it, they were a little
Cheap.
generic. Okay, yeah, cheapish, the cheap Marvel, the poor man's Marvel, right?
Yeah, Daredevil was great. Jessica Jones was half great. Punisher also half great. They were a little cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was. So I guess, with the Disney Plus new shows, it didn't occur to me, like I just had that prejudice of these new miniseries, it's going to be like the Netflix shows. It's not quite going to be the MCU. It'll reference
Yeah.
the MCU. And then, WandaVision knocks it out of the park. It's That was great. So I was a little prejudiced, and I wasn't, I wasn't really looking forward to this one like I was WandaVision, or
Mhm.
um, but I knew I was going to watch it, and so when I did sit down to watch it, uh, I was very, very pleased with every bit of it. I mean, the only thing that I thought was a little I did not like about this show, but now that I see the complete story arc, I understand why they did it. But the only thing I really didn't care for was that uh, the whole plot was about more super soldiers being made. And to
Mhm.
me, like when they introduced that, I was like, we did that though. We did that with Civil War. Like the whole thing about Civil War was that there were more soldiers somewhere. So that was the only thing I didn't like. So I know I've said a lot. So you go ahead, man. Let me take a breath.
Yeah, breathe, man. So I really appreciate this show on a lot of levels. I, in a meta sense, I want to say that I think this show is perfect for the second season of Zen in the Car. Um, we've talked a lot about mental health and trauma and that sort of thing, and this show is all about that. It's all about the healthy and unhealthy ways we try to deal with the past. um, Bucky, Sam, John Walker, even Sharon and Zemo are all dealing with something in either healthy or unhealthy ways. And yeah, even Carly and her group of refugees are dealing with things in their own way. And I appreciate that exploration of the more psychological side of the MCU. We never really in phase one, um, we saw these heroes the way, say, Zack Snyder sees them as the modern Greek gods, the modern myths. And in phase two, we peeled that back a little bit to iffy results. Iron Man 3 wasn't received all that well. Thor 2 wasn't received all that well. But then phase 3 and especially phase 4 has really let us see the human side of them.
It really had, and let me go off on Iron Man 3 for a minute because people what really put a black on that one in a lot of people's minds is the whole, oh, they pulled a fast one with the Mandarin.
And I will admit that soured me quite a bit.
It didn't bother me one bit. I didn't it didn't bother me a bit. I, I like Ben Kingsley and that whole I'm just an actor, man. I thought
I
that was
I
brilliant.
thought it was funny. On its own, I actually didn't mind it. It I don't want to get into that too much, but I didn't like it.
Right, and so that's why it gets a black eye. But you can't have the rest of what happens in Infinity War and Endgame without Iron Man 3, which is them focusing on the fact that Tony Stark has PTSD. You know,
Sure, but I think that I think it's fair to say that phase two is the representation of the whole is greater than its parts.
right? But yeah, I mean, you're right. It is our this one. I think the reason it was such a special treat, and me and you have made consistent notes throughout a lot of the shows that we've reviewed, that across the board, Star Trek, Discovery, Picard, a lot of shows are starting to severely address this issue of
Yeah.
PTSD specifically. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, you know, what's I think it's a Russian guy that said something about you can judge a culture by its music. Well, you can do it by the theater that it's producing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think there's something to be said for that, and there's a reason that we're getting this type of content now, and Daniel and I can debate that reason. We're not going to, but there's a reason.
well, either way, I mean, you making the statement that the second season of Zen in the Car, where we're talking about recovery a lot more, and we're going to be talking about these types of issues more and more, is paralleling with what's coming out in the MCU is further proof that I'm correct that our podcasts are going through the Uberverse and affecting a civilization, and it just happens to be ours.
Oh, I disagree with that.
Great. Now we have denominations, Dylan. Jeez.
This happens with every religion. It's
We
fine.
have we have the Orthodox Crumpton
Uh,
denomination and the revised Dylan
yes,
denomination.
the agnostic Dylans, because we are non-religious here.
So we're going to send the first, second, and third crusades of our new religion into New York to see if Avengers Tower and the Sanctum Sanctorum is actually there. On off into a place. No, but no. This one was a cool one because right in the beginning, and you had told me earlier that it was all about them, having sessions. And now that I look back, I really didn't think of it at the time, but I'm like, well, Sam Wilson, like his entire character was introduced as somebody who leads, a 12-step group, a recovery group.
Yeah, Sam Wilson, they've gone out of their way throughout these movies to establish him as the negotiator, as kind of the everyman who can talk to anybody and relate to them on an emotional level. And we see that a lot in this show. We see it with Sam, we see it, or not Sam, we see it with Bucky, we see it with John Walker, we see it with Carly, we even see it with Zemo.
Yeah. Um, we see it with all of them. But yeah, Sam Wilson, like, whenever we were first introduced to him, now I recall that. But we had touched on it earlier when I said, one of the reasons that one of the logical corners I painted myself in when battling whether or not to enter into therapy was, oh man, well, Steve Rogers goes to a 12-step group. Whatever, if you watch Endgame, it starts off that's where he's at. He's in a 12-step
Hmm.
group. And so that was one of the things that was like, well, crap, you know, if if Captain America has to go, then who am I? you know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, So for them to be able to take 6 episodes with two characters that are as close to that issue of war and battle trauma, this was an excellent way for them to do it. And the idea of putting these two characters together, one is very open to therapy, which is Sam Wilson, because I mean he does it. He was doing it for a living for VA. Then you have another person who's extremely resistant
Mm,
to.
I wonder who. I wonder if there's a parallel to this show.
I was wondering if you were going to pick that up. Unbox it, Dylan. Go ahead and just unbox it under
Hmm.
the umbrella of life imitating art or whatever.
Well, no, I mean, it plays into our dynamic because when we started this, you were very resistant to therapy, and I was very open to it.
And the facts will show that we recorded that prior to this show.
Yes, yes, we did.
Yes, we did. The facts will show that. So my theory about, just saying.
Causation doesn't equal correlation, Daniel.
Okay, whatever, dude. Read the Kabbalion. All right, all is mine, bro. All is mine.
Mm, all right.
Anyway, yeah, so obviously right from the get-go, I was like, okay, universe, Uberverse, Stan. Okay, Stan, I know what you're trying to tell me. My archetype in this is Bucky. Yeah, okay, I got it.
And I feel good
So,
that my archetype becomes Captain America.
well, there you go. So, and I'm completely cool with it because I'm like, it's church, dude. Stanley has given me my scriptures, and I'm okay. It's Bucky. All right, I get it. This dude's sitting across the desk, from a therapist, and the therapist is like, "Have you gone through your list?"
And he's like, "Yeah, I went through the
Now, for the listeners, what happened what happens on screen whenever he's like, "Yeah, I went through my list."
Well, he's threatening somebody, beating somebody.
Yeah,
He to quote Sam, who had a great line about this, you weren't amending, you were avenging.
right. That's right.
He he wasn't going back to get forgiveness, he was going back for vengeance.
Right.
He he was doing what John Walker did in episode 4. He wasn't dealing with his issues, he was lashing out.
And what's funny about this is me and my therapist. who, by the way, he says he's our biggest fan now. So,
Well, hey, Daniel's therapist.
so it's now it's like he can listen to me do his psychological profile of me now is just wealth.
Yeah,
But
he gets unfiltered you. 'Cause you don't edit anything out unless we ask.
no, actually, he does get the completely oh God, he gets it. At some points, I feel sorry for him, and I'm like, "Oh man, you want me to let you go? I could tell." And then I'm like, "Oh wait, I'm paying this guy." So
Yeah. Yeah, you're paying him. Come
it's like,
on.
yeah, I have a captive audience, man. I'm renting a friend.
Woohoo!
Anyway, but no, recently me and my therapist went through a very similar scenario, which was we went through, okay, with this particular issue, with these particular people, this list that you've made, where do you think you are in the stages of grief? So it's like, where is Bucky in the stages of grief here? You know, is it?
He's he's somewhere between denial and anger.
Yeah, yeah,
He's doing a bit of both.
a bit of both.
Um, denial with Yori, but anger with his therapist.
Yeah, sure, man. And this is, me, and a lot of therapists do this. I understand it, and I get it. I have to write letters or a letter, right? Uh,
I hate
so,
writing.
oh,
I love writing, but I hate writing.
well, I love it. I mean, that's me.
Yeah,
I, I, I,
both.
I bleed prose anyway, but I have to write a letter. So I'm like, sounds like a plan, Doc. I'm going to write two versions of it, though.
Oh my God.
There's going to be two versions, and then we can read it together and we can discuss. And one of them is going to be that Bucky beating the snot out of people, and the other one's going to
Mm.
be,
We
oh,
talked through our issues and everyone was happy. And look at how healthy I am.
right. So I'll write both versions, so it's out of me.
Back to you.
Right. And
Um,
then and then I'll agree to after me and my therapist talk about the two letters. I agree to send the one that is the wisest, and then after we hang up, I'm going to send the one I want to send. I'm just joking, Doc.
now
Just,
you have to hold him accountable, Doc. But no, I really think that the show does an excellent job at putting us in both of their frames of mind,
mm-hmm.
Sam and Bucky,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and John Walker. We'll get to him,
yeah,
but
we'll get because me and you both. I don't think we used it. We did record it, but we didn't use it. But this is another area where we were right before. Is me and you. I think we discussed it, but yeah, it was we recorded it, but we didn't air it. But we were discussing the character of John Walker, and you were like, I kind of like the character when everybody was taking a dump on him, and I'm like, well, dude, I mean, I think one, he's supposed to be an unlikable character, but they're sending the actor death threats, and I mean, come
but
on, in
I
reality, if you were given the shield all of a sudden,
can I just say that besides him killing a dude, I don't think he's unlikable.
um,
I I find his character to be relatable in a lot of ways.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about,
Eh, he he was he had a lot of trauma,
hmm
and he was put in a situation where he was in over his head as
hmm
any other human being would be,
hmm
and then he was given the equivalent of steroids on steroids.
which, by the way, I don't know if this is a plot hole, but it's like I remember whenever you had to actually get inside of a chamber, a really
Oh,
sophisticated chamber with a
that,
science team to take the serum. Like, what can you do now? Just drink it?
yeah, that was the 40s.
All right.
That was,
Mm,
I mean, think about how technology think about how cancer technology has advanced in 70 years.
all right. No comment. Um. Anyway, yeah, I thought that the whole John Walker, because it's like, dude, we know he's not going to be Captain America for the rest of the canon. Duh. So
No,
will you guys just follow the story and stop having a hissy fit?
but he was a good dude. He was a
He
good
was
dude.
he
He
was
was
a
a
real dude.
Yeah, he was a real dude. He was a good dude who was put in a bad situation and reacted poorly because of his circumstances.
Hmm. And a very, very, very good reflection of the current generation of combat veterans coming back from the Middle East,
And
I
I
think.
I can't speak to that, but yeah, I can't speak to it, but sure. I also think there was a parallel that was understated between Bucky and Walker.
Do tell.
So when we meet them, when we meet both of them in this show, what are they doing? They are both looking away from their trauma. They are drowning their trauma in things that make them feel normal. Um, Combat, whatever makes them feel normal, avenging, whatever gets them through the day. Bucky's not doing it successfully, but Walker is doing it to a point where he can function normally, where Bucky really can't. Um, but what we see is Walker doesn't have the capacity for introspection. And in fairness, he's not given an opportunity for introspection. Bucky is. It, it's really a reflection of how, uh, oddly enough, to Zemo's credit, it's really a reflection of how superheroes are treated in the MCU. Um, because compare Bucky's trajectory after Civil War to John Walker's after Episode 4. Bucky bombs the Bucky allegedly bombs the UN. He does kill people, and he's given a full pardon
Yeah.
and an opportunity to correct his mistakes and learn and get therapy. Walker, in a fairly understandable situation, he wrongly kills a dude. Wrongly kills a dude. And what does he get? He gets stripped of his title. He gets stripped of his duties. He gets uh, an other than honorable discharge. And he's basically told to go fuck himself.
Mm. Well, I mean, how does this play into into the way that you look at it is a lot of most of Bucky's trauma is because his free will was really taken from him when he did the horrendous thing. He's not really suffering from PTSD so much from World War II, where he killed a bunch of Nazis and Hydra soldiers. That was not as traumatic as the fact that when Hydra got a hold of him and they scrambled his brain, he became their assassin, their mind slave. So he can remember. I mean, he remembers doing these things clearly now. He remembers every face that he killed, but
Yeah.
he didn't have a choice in the matter, and that
It,
is where his trauma was. It wasn't. I mean, obviously it was that he killed people, but he killed people before. It didn't show it that much in the movie, but you got to assume the Howling Commandos he killed Nazis. But it was the killing people out of without free will, just as a job rather than for a cause. What
mhm.
caused trauma for him, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you take that and let's say you look at John Walker. John Walker was never under any kind of mind control, but his trauma did come from the cognitive dissonance of you want to serve your country. So you trust your country to, if they're going to make you into a weapon, point you at the bad guys. And, there's conversations between him and Hoskins, I think the guy's name is, where he's like, dude, we had to do some nasty stuff over there.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
and you could ask what was his reward, and the answer that most people give is he was made Captain America. But
yeah. And
but
I
that's
think,
not a reward for somebody who's traumatized. That's a burden.
well, I think this is another thing I think that was so cool about the dynamics of that character was so he clearly does have trauma from killing people in the Middle East, and for him to become Captain America, it's almost like his sins are forgiven him by the shield and the suit and the moniker. It's
But
like,
instead, they become extensions of his sins.
right, but when that's why he's so passionate about being a Captain America because it's like I did some nasty stuff. However, if I'm Captain America, I'm
Can,
all American pie. I'm
can I relate it to another line from Bucky?
sure.
Steve believed in you enough to give you that shield. If he was wrong about you, he was wrong about me.
Yeah.
Symbolically, that's what John Walker's saying. This shield is forgiving me. If it was wrong about me, what else was wrong?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a direct comparison, but I think it fits.
Yep. And see, this is another thing. This we can get off into the esoteric here. This is why I believe that the message of the 66 books of the Bible, the overall message of Yeshua the Christ, is so psychologically powerful because the if you take the placebo of an object outside of yourself has the ability to make everything that you did wrong right, or everything that you did wrong magically go away. Whether it's true that a shield or a messiah can do that or not is immaterial to me. It's the fact that does it do it? The whole thing really about trauma and anxiety and looking at your stuff is is obviously first about being able to look within and feel forgiven for your shortcomings.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, it to me it doesn't matter if that comes from a shield or a cross or an ankh or whatever, as long as the individual that is seeking it is doing it for peace, in some kind of a way. Was that too deep, or do you get where I'm going with that?
No, I get where you were going with that.
Basic a symbol. A symbol is what the observer puts on it. Is basically what I'm saying. And in the context of this show, you're right. For Bucky and for Walker, that shield is a symbol of, you know, wanting to be viewed through this untouchable, perfect, uber god, Steve Rogers, So you're right. And I thought that was a really powerful line between, because I don't know if it was more the line, if he was wrong about you, he was wrong about me, or the way that is it Sebastian Shaw, right?
Sebastian Stan.
Sebastian.
Sebastian Shaw is a movie villain. I don't remember what
Okay.
movie.
I know the guy's name is Sebastian, or excuse me, I know the guy's name is future Luke Skywalker. Anyway, uh, but it was the way he said the line. If
Oh
if
no,
he was
Sebastian Shaw is an X-Men villain.
okay, all right, that's right. He's the leader of the Hellfire Club, isn't he?
Yes.
Aha, I'm good. I'm not even in front of a computer. Uh, but anyway, yeah, I thought it was a very powerfully delivered line. If he was wrong about you, he was wrong about me. But was he? The thing is he wasn't wrong about Sam.
No.
You, you know.
He uh, so I want to get into this a little bit. I know we'll get into it more with Maurice, but I think there's something powerful about Sam being the next Captain America more than Bucky for
Hmm.
reasons other than the speech he gave,
Hmm.
which I think the speech he gave was powerful, but we'll set that aside for a moment.
We're gonna set that aside because, yeah, we are gonna have Maurice on, Maurice Falling, author of From Shepherds to Shadows, to discuss this next part. It's
Um,
like,
yeah.
yeah, after because I was texting you last night as I was watching it, and I was like, dude, have you have you seen episode 6? You're like, yep. I was like, that speech, dude. I mean, which we'll get to, but
But
I knew that there was no way that we were going to discuss this without bringing on, an American black guy to talk
yeah,
about it from his point of view.
yes, and we will. But besides the racial aspect, which is an incredibly important one,
Hmm.
the other reason I think he's a perfect choice is because Steve Rogers is not the Captain America for this era. This era needs somebody not as perfect, not as perfect on the outside, and it needs somebody who is a bit more human and
Yeah,
less of a demigod.
right.
Um, and it needs a human, and that's why I thought it was perfect that Sam didn't take the super soldier serum.
Yeah,
If he had taken that, honestly, I wouldn't have liked the choice as much anymore. I wouldn't have
yeah,
liked his his being chosen.
Right. And I think I didn't want him to take it either, and I think that says a strong message. Is it's like, the American spirit, um,
The
is a
American spirit is hurting and it needs a healer, and Sam's a healer.
and he also knows, like, he can empathize with people who are traumatized.
Yeah, he
He
can
can empathize.
empathize with Carly.
Yeah, he can empathize with the nation right now, because I mean, we can make further parallels where this is after what they call it, the snap or the blip now, but or the decimation, whatever you want to call it. But this is after, you could say, a widespread global pandemic, you know, where
Yeah.
there's it's not exactly the same, but you're talking about a global crisis that most certainly did affect every single one of us and our infrastructures of government, of commerce, of everything.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
It, yes. The world of the MCU, just like the world of the real world, needs a healer. Sam is a healer.
yeah,
He's the perfect choice. There is no other choice.
no other choice. And it also is, man, Marvel, those guys over at Marvel are something else, because it's so funny. It's almost as if they write things backwards, like a mystery novelist. But it's like, from the whole thing from when they first met, which is the whole line about left to your left, and and then at the darkest hour at the end of Endgame, when it's just
On your
Cap, dude. It's him. He's the last guy standing, and Thanos right there. You hear, that static in his ear, and you hear on your left, and it's Sam. You know what I mean? Perfect foreshadowing if you go back.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Speaking of which, not to detract too much, but happy, happy Endgame anniversary. It was 2 years ago this weekend
Wow.
that Avengers
I feel
Endgame.
old.
I feel young.
2 years?
2 years.
Jesus.
2 years. Happy anniversary. Just happy anniversary. True
Uh,
blue.
can we get into another aspect that I just adored?
Yeah.
Zemo.
Yeah, dude, you almost made me miss that one. What's that guy's name? What's the actor's name?
Daniel Bruhl.
Okay, cool. He's not Skarsgård. Why did I think his
No.
name was Skarsgård?
Uh, so Zemo had a really interesting storyline in the show. It was a very muted role, but one that I thoroughly appreciated. And his argument that inherent within the super soldier idea, inherent within, I think, superheroism, is supremacy. Eh, And when you look at it, he's right. He's completely right about super soldiers and about superheroes. He's right. There is a supremacy involved in thinking that you are morally justified in making the decisions for other people. There just is. And the only line I think he was totally wrong about, ironically, was when he said Steve Rogers was the exception. Steve Rogers wasn't the exception at all. Um, eh, right or wrong, Steve Rogers defying the Sokovia Accords in Civil War was him saying he believed he had the superior judgment to override the world's representatives.
Hmm.
Zemo, there is a superiority in thinking that.
Well, it kind of echoes, to cross universes into the DC universe. It kind of echoes, oh, what's his face, Harvey Dent, whenever he says, "You either die being the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain." Is that what you think?
Yes, but I also don't think that this is a very this is a much wider topic, but supremacy in that area in this area is not necessarily the problem. It's when that supremacy is corrupted. Steve Rogers was not corrupted, and I think that's the point Zemo was trying to get at.
Yeah. Well.
And he was right about that. But when absolute power corrupts absolutely, and having that super strength and that those superpowers can corrupt you very easily. So Zemo, all I'm trying to get at is Zemo's motivations are completely logically sound and really don't take any major jumps,
Yeah, I
like most
mean,
villains do.
yeah, I could see his position, but what makes, I think, what made Steve Rogers the exception is answered in the first Captain America movie, where it's like, one, he wasn't seeking the power. Like, he wasn't seeking to do anything but, like the old message. And this is when I want to shift into my Captain America thing. This is where we connect. Is he can't stand a damn bully, you know, anywhere. And
Right.
he's a scrawny kid. He's got to put newspapers in his shoes. He's got like asthma and all this other stuff, but he's a damn fighter, dude. In the face of injustice on him or anybody else, what's his line? I could do this all day, all day. Even though he's getting his ass kicked. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I'm completely agreeing with Zemo. I I
But
think,
he
but
makes a point.
he makes a point, and what I like is that the show acknowledges that
He makes a point.
through
Well,
the
and
show not by Sam not taking the super soldier serum, they say Zemo is right.
yeah, I mean, and you also have to look at it through Zemo's eyes. His family's dead. So he's
Because
also in trauma, man.
his family died because superheroes thought they had the superior judgment and the supremacy to allow a city to be crushed.
Yeah, well, they all
And
got points.
lesser of two evils, acknowledged, but Zemo has every right to feel the way he feels, and it's not illogical
No,
either.
and I don't think he did anything. I don't think he did anything completely nefarious in this. I think he did everything that was logically
I,
consistent with a character who'd been through what he'd been through.
I feel like Zemo is headed for an anti-hero route.
I
I,
hope so too, because I just like that actor, and I hope that
I,
there's more of him.
there will be more of him, I have no doubt.
Good.
But what I think they'll end up doing with him is he's the guy who they take out of the raft anytime there's a big threat. And he'll be like, okay, I can't stand these people with these powers, so I will help you destroy them.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like Thanos when he joins the Avengers to stop certain threats that he believes are immoral.
Thanos.
Yeah, there was a storyline in the comics where I forget who the villain was, but Thanos believed that the villain was wrong, and he actually joined the Avengers for a couple of issues.
Oh, well, that must have
Uh,
been my off years.
yeah, it was a great storyline, and I think they're going to take that role with Zemo.
Mhm. No,
Right.
but steering it back to this one, I mean, the character of Carly. Well, for one, I will say this: there is one thing I don't like. The name Flag Smashers. Come on.
It okay. It's not a great name. She's also like 13, so I'm going to give it to her. They're
Flag, and I can eat like when they say it, it's like it's an English accent. It's a flag smasher.
13-year-olds are not creative. Trust me, I was a 13-year-old not too long ago.
Wait, was she 13?
She looked 13.
No, okay. You're just being facetious.
No, no, I'm not being facetious. She looked 13, so I assumed she was about 13.
Hmm, alright. But uh, she makes a really good. I mean, I can see her point of view, dude,
Yeah.
because
Uh,
you know,
these people were gone. They were abandoned homes. These people were homeless. They took the abandoned homes, and then suddenly the homes aren't abandoned anymore. The people just come back, and these people who have built lives over 5 years are just supposed to what? Go back to being homeless?
right? Well, I mean, this is what I saw in that faction, that group, and it certainly wasn't a popular position for me to take in 2008 when I took it. But when I started getting into political activism and you know the whole issue of Islamophobia was sweeping this nation, and I'm like trying to be, what was the word? the peacemaker amongst
Hmm.
the different groups, where I was like, guys, listen, for one, this didn't start with September 11th. This goes way back. Americans have very short memories, but Middle Easterners, people in that area of the world, they don't. They remember for generations and generations. This little back and forth did not begin in New York. It's been for a long time. And if you trace it back, we're kind of the assholes in this situation. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, excuse
Yeah.
me. Our unchecked government is the instigator of a lot of this. So, but that's neither here nor there. Let's try to put ourselves in the shoes of these people over there who are just trying to live their lives and love their families and do their thing. And they show up at a wedding. And because one person may have ridden in a road in a cab with a cab driver who bought a shawarma from this other guy who might have once said the word Taliban or Osama bin Laden or something like that. We're going to drone strike this entire wedding. You're the only survivor of 300 friends and families. You have PTSD. Unchecked, it would be
Yeah.
very easy for you to strap some bombs to your chest and blow yourself up when you're that traumatized. Imagine that for the past 20 years.
Yeah. What do you expect?
What do you expect? The CIA calls it blowback.
Yeah, the CIA knows it happens.
So it's like, okay, you can call them terrorists, but
And
how?
by the definition, they are terrorists. But what's unhelpful is we ascribe that label and then never seek to ask why. Like Sam said in his speech, these people are doing all of this. Why?
Why? Yeah. And I don't want to get into the speech yet because I want Maurice here for that.
I
But
I do too, but it felt right to reference it.
yeah, and that reference is exactly. I believe that whoever wrote that particular line is talking about exactly what I'm talking about right now, and it's the fact that we're still over there. You know what I mean?
We are this isn't for this, but Biden has said that he is withdrawing all troops
Okie dokie.
unconditionally.
Okay, we're closing all the bases too.
I doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okie dokie, okie dokie. We're gonna withdraw all the troops except for the ones in all the bases that we've been building.
Yeah, no, well,
We gotta keep troops in those, right? They're our bases.
yeah, we should close those immediately.
Yeah, or I mean, because we couldn't possibly just, I don't know, gut them and leave them. Maybe even make them up as apartment buildings for dishomed people that are, the result of our business end. I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe we could do that and pull
yeah,
all
that
the
would be
troops back.
nice. That would be
Mm, Biden, Biden,
nice. Didn't
or whoever,
everyone?
everyone. But we'll get to that because that's getting into the speech. So, but I mean, on the level of trauma, I see what they were trying to say with Carly and her group, and
I I do think they mishandled Carly a little bit.
well, I mean, I think that
She
she
was a
was the she was
go-
the example of why Zemo was right.
she was an example of why Zemo was right. I I this is going to get into my one probably negative with the show. It felt too quick. It needed a couple more episodes to juice the wheels, I think.
Yeah, I was a little surprised it ended with 6 episodes.
I think it needed a couple more episodes to juice the wheels, give a little more development to Carly. Because I think her story was great, but I think it was underutilized.
Well, too late now.
It is, but I mean, we're here to review it, so that's my big negative.
Yeah. So,
Um, so before we wrap up, because I do have to wrap up in a second, there's one last thing I want to get to, and that's we talked about the conclusion to Sam's arc. We talked briefly about the conclusion to Bucky's arc, with him actually learning to accept his trauma. Um, but we didn't talk about John Walker's ending. And John Walker's ending, I think, is really interesting because most people see it as, oh, he didn't go crazy. He's redeemed. No, 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 no. he he didn't move forward. He regressed. He didn't learn to accept his trauma. He learned to avoid it. Which means the next time we see him, the next time he has a stressful event, he's going to snap harder.
Well, I think that's the point of them making him U.S. agent is
Yeah.
that he's going to be the wet works version of Captain America.
And and right now he's still a good but misguided man. I think he's going to snap really hard next time.
Yeah, and I want to end it, and we can get out of here, but I want to end it with Bucky's actual story arc, which is, you know, you don't really see him, and I can identify with this. Um, you don't really see him come to a place of finally letting it go, even though he's been free of the Hydra mind control until he does that hard thing, the hardest thing, you know.
Confronting Yori.
Yeah,
And I think that they've this is a side note, they've already announced Captain America 4 with
yeah,
Sam as
yeah,
Captain America. I think the subtitle is going to be Captain America and the White Wolf instead of the Winter Soldier.
that would be cool. But yeah, I mean, him finally biting down and doing the hardest thing. And there was a line that Sam said to him when they were practicing with the shield, but he says you got to do the work,
Hmm.
right? You got to do the work. That was another thing that hit home for me because over the past few years, that phrase has been said to me by people who genuinely were caring for me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And they were like, "You, Daniel, you got to do the work, dude."
Yeah.
And I was like Bucky. I was like, "What does that mean, man?"
Hmm.
Like I couldn't get my head around it. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, what do you do? What do you do? Were you ever there?"
A bit, yes. I I'm the type who can hear something once and tend to wrap my mind around it, but things like that did take a couple tries.
It took it. It boggled me, dude. It was like Sherlock Holmes trying to comprehend love or God. It's just like it's not logical. What do you mean, do the work? What do you mean? Build a time machine, go back in time and like stop everything horrible that happened or to me or that I did? What are you talking about going to my childhood shit? What does
Yeah.
that what does that mean? You know what I
But
mean?
I like that Sam got there though. Yeah.
Bucky me.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he got there and how he got there was doing the hard thing.
Yeah, he did the hard thing. And I like that we actually don't see how it wrapped up.
You mean with him confronting Yuri?
Yeah, we don't know what Yuri said. We don't know what Yuri said to him. We don't know if he got forgiveness because that wasn't the point.
Well, this is what they say in 12 steps. Okay, is when it does come to the time to make your amends, and we can leave with this. Um, and I know this is true. This is personally true. Um, when you go to do it, some people will reciprocate. They understand,
Hmm.
and some people won't receive you at all. Like they're not even going to hear you. Some people you can't because they're either gone or it would cause more harm. And some people are just going to tell you to go fuck yourself. I mean, they're going to have horrible things to say to you. And consistently, you hear in 12 step groups that part of healing is not about, the only thing that
Not
it's
about
about is sweeping your side of the street.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's not about their response. It's about you doing it.
Right. And I think that whoever intentionally did not write or film a scene showing the response to Bucky's attempt at amends was
Knew that.
absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect, and yeah, it was perfect.
Because it's like
Uh,
you don't need to know what they have to say. I mean,
no, it wasn't important to
yeah.
the story. Um, with that, I do have to wrap up this part.
And I would concur, as I do too. It is past my bedtime as well.
All right, we
So,
will we will be back with Maurice
yes, we'll bring Maurice on to talk about more deeper philosophical messages of this
and
epic.
the and the Isaiah Bradley storyline.
Yes. All right.
All right.